Quick lesson on turbos here. This turbo is out of a 5-cylinder turbo diesel Mercedes. Basically, let me explain the flow a little bit. Exhaust gases come out from the cylinder head of the manifold. The manifold pushes the exhaust gases into the turbine. The turbine will spin up faster based on, more exhaust gas flow. That's why there's some lag. You got to get the exhaust gas flowing. It forces the exhaust gases through the scroll and then out this pipe, and this pipe essentially goes out to the muffler, eventually to the tailpipe. So that's one part. Check out what that looks like. Exhaust gases in, spooling the turbine. Exhaust gases out. This side. This side is basically the exhaust gas side. If we get this turbine spun up on the exhaust gas side, right, it spins, it spins, it spins. There's a direct shaft through the center section of this turbo. That direct shaft spins up the impeller, which, let's run through the impeller's job here. So this has got a big air filter. Air gets sucked in the air filter, comes through the air filter, goes into the front of the turbo, and then the turbo is basically going to suck from that side, and then because that impeller is spinning so fast, it's going to pressurize, blow it out the turbo, and when it goes out the turbo, it's going to go down into these hoses right here. They're a little bit hard to tell. It goes down into a hose through a big air-to-air intercooler, which cools the air, and then out the intercooler, and boom, into the engine. So this air would be compressed. So this is like boost pressure. So for that reason, it's charged, right? It's charged with boost. So this is a charge pipe. This is charge piping. You may not call the intercooler is kind of an aftermarket term. They'll probably call it a charge cooler. So let's look at how that goes on in the turbo. So the fresh air comes in. Because this impeller's spinning, it's gonna suck it in right here, boost it, compress it, and this is gonna come out, and that's what's gonna go through that intercooler, the charge cooler. Now here's the thing, to make all that boost, it's gotta spin really fast. So in the center section of this turbo, we run, the shaft has high-speed bearings on it. And those bearings are really precise, and they are a little sensitive for that reason. So for that reason, we send oil either in this side and out. I gotta be careful, this is a new one, and out this other side, or maybe it comes in the bottom and out the top. To be honest, I'm not really sure on this one because it kind of doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at that. Right, we got a pressurized oil in that center section. So matter of fact, this one's definitely going to be pressurized in the top and drain out the bottom. See, this tube right here goes down to the crankcase. That's the return oil. The pressurized oil came out the head right here. There's a tiny little hole right there. That goes to this hard piping. So I have to change that O-ring, and this is going to have gaskets on it. Copper gaskets, which actually I moved them. Here's the new ones. So the return and the copper gaskets, it's going to have a banjo bolt. So that's going to get pressurized oil in the center. Now I need to make sure that that hard line is clear in case there's any metal debris in there. That'll starve this turbo for oil and it'll puke. It'll get burned up. The reason that this one failed, well, I guess I don't exactly know the root cause, which is why I need to check that line. But the failure is this. Those bearings are shot. You can't really fix those bearings. A very qualified shop could remanufacture this turbo. It's not really a DIY job. So order this new turbo. It's like $1,000. So that was the real issue. Now, another detail. You notice there's oil all over this thing. This thing was blowing oil out the tailpipe. There's seals past. We're right now on the intake side, so this is the impeller, right? The exhaust side is the turbine, the intake side is the impeller. So behind this impeller and behind the turbine, there's a seal, and that seals the oil in the center section. And that oil in the center section should not leak through into the intake air that's going to go in the engine. But the problem is you can't seal a shaft if it's sloppy like that. So this turbo probably does have bad seals, but in reality, the main problem is the bearings are so shot. Even if the seals were perfect, you can't seal a shaft as it's wobbling around. So this one had major oil consumption and oil out the tailpipe. Additionally, it made no boost. So basically, it didn't flow enough air. It was still fueling full, and it was blowing black smoke out. That's rich mixture. If it's extremely rich, it can actually, on a diesel, it's kind of weird. It can turn more of a light, like a whitish smoke, almost like coolant, but that's literally raw diesel fuel coming out the tailpipe. This was burning, there was combustion, so it was actually black, but it was just too rich. So that's really the problem with this whole thing. Now the next little part of the lesson is when it's a new turbocharger like this, we need to be very careful to pre-lube all these bearings. So this kit was nice. It came with a little syringe, and so I'm just basically pumping this center section of the turbo full, and at the same time I'm spinning, right? I'm spinning the turbine or the impeller because they're both connected together through the shaft. So I'm spinning the shaft to really get it pre-lubed. And now that I've got it effectively pre-lubed, I'm going to put the gasket on the drain plate and I'm going to set this turbo in. And then where this exhaust flange goes, right here, you know, new gasket. New gaskets on everything. As you can see, that comes in the kit. The other thing with this turbo is it's an electronic wastegate, which is pretty cool. So if this turbo begins to make too much boost pressure, we're going to wastegate it, which is basically going to be a little lever that directs the air away from the exhaust turbine. If the exhaust is hitting the turbine and speeding it up, it's going to build more and more and more boost. But if we get to the point where we're making too much boost, this will actually close and will divert that exhaust, bypassing the turbine, so the turbine will slow down. Now, there's mechanical, there's all sorts of controls. This one is actually electronically controlled, so this is a little module that communicates with the ECM, and the ECM is going to command it to move a motor or an actuator to move this rod to start bleeding boost off, basically. So this is a full electronic wastegate assembly with the turbo. So it's kind of an expensive job, so I'm gonna take my time, probably do even a little bit more pre-lube oil, and you know, hook it up really good. But hopefully that's a helpful lesson. Like I said, I gotta blow through this line, because imagine if there's any debris in there and it starves the turbo for oil, and it kills the new $1,000 turbo. Hope that helps somebody understand.